Hi everyone, Jane here. Thank you so much for watching today and welcome if you are new and welcome back if you are a returning visitor. Today I am going to be looking at the Dina Wakley Scribble sticks and I thought I'd start off by doing a little bit of swatching. So I'm going to go through the colours very briefly and just sort of swatch down some dry and then I'll water them out and talk a bit more about the different properties. So we have, first of all, I put down some black paint pens so that I could swatch the white. Then we have lemon. This one was cheddar. Next we have tangerine. Blushing, which is like a peachy pink. Then we have magenta. Fuchsia, and I'm trying to get a nice block of colour down with each one. Ruby, then Sedona, which is a slightly warmer red. So ruby is sort of like a cooler red and Sedona is a warmer red. Blackberry, which is a more of a blue leaning purple, and then we have eggplant, which is more of a I don't know, more of a pinky leaning purple. Then we have sky, a nice pale blue. Ocean, there's quite a lot of blues in this collection. I have sets 1 and 2, and the next colour is lapis, and I love this one. This one is marine. When you put it down it looks almost black, but when you water it out it's a beautiful sort of indigo colour. Night, which you would think is darker, which is why I put them in this order, but actually I think the marine is darker. Peacock, one of my favourites, very much a tealy colour. And then we have turquoise. So obviously going to be two of my favourites there. Then we move into the greens. We've got olive, lime, evergreen, and then some earth tone, well, one earth tone. We've got umber, so that's the only brown I've got in my collection. Then we've got elephant, which is grey, and we have black. Now, like I say, I have got sets 1 and 2. I do believe that there's definitely a set 3, which I think has got like pastels and metallics, and then there is a separate neon set as well that came out fairly recently, but I'm not sure if there are more sets than that. I stopped after the first 2 because I felt that was enough. Now, I got these a fair while ago, and I have to admit, I did use them quite a bit to start with, but I haven't used them for a while, which is why I'm classing them as a forgotten art supply. They're not forgotten as in they are actually on my desk. They're on my desk in a pot with the Tim Holtz Distress pencils, but they're just not a product I have reached for that much. So I thought it's about time that I started using what I have. I'm very much this year, well, I'm always somebody who likes to use what I have if possible, but I'm going to make an extra effort this year. I'm doing a great big lot of destashing, but I'm also want to then, whatever I decide that I'm keeping, I really do want to use. Now, as you can see, these are water reactive, so they are very much along the same lines as the Distress pencils or Neo Colour 2s, Woodies, all of those sorts of products. But these, when you look at the information on the Ranger site, because these are made by Ranger for Dina Wakley Media, they are a pigment stick. It doesn't, there doesn't seem to be much specification about what they're carried in. So whether there is any wax or oil or anything like that, I don't know. But they are classed as a pigment stick. They are water reactive. And when they are watered out, they are classed as sort of semi-permanent. So I take that to mean that if you water them out, so if you've got any pigment left that hasn't been watered out, that will not be in any way permanent. That will reactivate with water, and you will see that later in my video when I do the actual project. But if you just splattered it with water accidentally, things like that, or put a little bit of water on or something over the top, it wouldn't move. However, if you get a brush and you're scrubbing it with the water, it's probably going to move, and if there's any little bit of pigment that's not been activated, then it will move. And also if you put it on top of something like a gesso, it's going to be less permanent because the gesso doesn't allow the pigment to sink into the paper, which is a good point of using gesso underneath products. But if you want something to be staying, then obviously don't use gesso underneath it. So this is all the colours now watered out. I left a bit on the left hand side of each. The white, it's not very opaque at all. It's very sort of flimsy when you water it out, I think. So I'm not quite sure how often I actually use the white, but the colours are nice and vibrant. I think they're more vibrant than the Tim Holtz Distress pencils. They seem more pigmented. And so they're a fun product to use. Now, I decided, because I was using the Scribble sticks, I'm going in with the Dina Wakley Watercolour Journal. So because it is watercolour, I'm not worrying about putting any gesso or anything to help these to move, because it is watercolour paper, so they should move quite okay on this surface. And I wanted to do a bit of a grid, because when I'm trying out mediums, I find this is just a fun way to sort of test and to play around with them. And what I'm going to be doing is creating a background, but I'm going to be trying to use these sticks in different ways so that you can see what sort of things you can do with them. Now, this video is not intended to tell you to go out and buy Scribble sticks, not at all. This is me finding something I already own and using it. So I would encourage, if you haven't got Scribble sticks, try this with something else that you might have. So if you've got any sort of water reactive stick or crayon, then you can do probably exactly the same things with these. These sticks are all very similar in what you can do with them. Now, I only put a little bit of this turquoise down, and I'm just scribbling down some colour, and you can see that it really watered out to almost nothing. So you do have to be aware that some of these colours are more pigmented than others, and the colour you get really depends on how much of the product you put down. So I'm then going in with the peacock and just doing my usual of circles to do, love a circle, and it's just getting something down. Now, because I've got that masking tape, of the painter's tape, it will make this look different at the end, and that's the fun reveal part that you get. Now, I do believe this was the magenta, so I wanted to add some of this in, and as you can see, I then just splash some of the colour. So this is one of the things you can do with these, because it's going onto a watery background where there's already water, it will spread out more. But if you had a dry background, then that would make more defined splats for you. And now I'm going in, I think this was cheddar. It's either cheddar or tangerine. I suspect it's cheddar. No, it looks like it could be tangerine. And then we're going in with the lime. And because they are, excuse me, because they are a pigment stick, they do not have any wood or anything around them. They have like a plasticky, papery covering. And I actually did have sharpened mine just in a normal paper pencil sharpener, just to get a point to my sticks again, because they do wear down and you do get flat. Now, you can use them flat, or if like me you wanted a bit more of a point to them, you can put them in the pencil sharpener. So I've forgotten what I was saying. So I use them like that, or I also use the other end with my brush. So, but because because they haven't got wood on them, you can stick them straight into the water, and you're not got to worry about getting them damaged in any way. So here I'm going in with the evergreen onto this stamp. This is a stamp I carved myself years ago out of some, I think it's Speedball Easy Carve or Soft Carve or something like that. Just a very, very simple leaf. And so you can go straight on to things like your stamps with them and use them as instead of an ink pad. So you can match your backgrounds, and that would be why I would say you might do this. You might want all of your background to be cohesive in your colours and products. And you will see in a little while something about how I did this, because I have mostly watered out the pigment, but it wasn't quite totally watered out, which will become a point that needs to be made. So I thought I'd have a go with stenciling. So I've got a bit of drywall tape here. This didn't really work. The holes are too narrow, but I put a bit of the colour on a sponge. I spritz the sponge, put some colour onto the sponge, and then I'm trying to stencil through. Now, this wasn't an issue with the product. This was actually an issue with the stencil that I'd used. So I got out a proper stencil made with thicker mylar with bigger holes, and this worked fine through there. So you can use your pigment sticks, all these different sorts of products that you have, in a variety of ways. So if you've only got, if you sometimes think, well, I haven't got acrylic paint, I haven't got all these ink pads that people have to do the stamping and the stenciling, you can use these other products to do similar things. Now, you're not going to get as a defined image when you're using things like this, but you will get, you know, if you're using something quite blocky, quite not such fine detail, you can easily use these products with the stamps and stencils that you have. But just be aware that obviously you're not going to get the same as if you're stamping with something like a VersaFine Clair ink pad on a very fine detailed stamp. You're not going to get that sort of effect. So here we are removing the tape, and I always love when you remove the tape. Now I wanted to add some more to this page, so I'm keeping with the Dina Wakley theme. I thought I might as well. So this is her, well, she may have released more since I bought this. This was last year, some collage paper. I do believe it's called Photo Transfers. And I'm just going on the back of the paper with some water to sort of remove the images I want. Now, I started off, I was going to do one. As you will have seen from the thumbnail, I ended up with 3 because I decided I wanted to have more on there. So I'm just going in and wetting around my image and then just gently pulling the paper apart. Now, this is a collage tissue paper. So even though it looks white at the moment, when it goes on the page, that will go translucent. So you'll be able to see more of the background through it. Now, if you wasn't happy with seeing that pattern behind, you could put white gesso behind her, or you could put white gesso on the back of the tissue so that it gave you a plain base. I wasn't worried. I quite like the fact that the background comes through, and I'm adding on Liquitex matte medium, and I probably could have added some more matte medium. The more matte medium you tend to add and make sure that the paper's covered, the more it goes translucent, I find. Now, there you will notice that I didn't get any movement of those scribble sticks underneath. I'd obviously watered out the pigment quite well. Now, and a couple of these now you will see, I think it's this one, I put it up in the top right hand corner, and that bit of leaf that I had stamped, I hadn't watered out the whole of that pigment, and I get a little bit of transfer of the green onto the paper. Now, I didn't worry too much. I just tried to sort of smooth it out as much as I could, and I knew I was going to be going over these with some more colour in a little while, but that's just to be aware of. So if you have watered all that pigment out, you know, it's going to stay there while you're doing your collaging. But if you've got anywhere you've got big globules big globules, sounds awful, of pigment left behind, when you add that matte medium over the top, it is going to make it move. So I'm giving it a bit of a dry with my heat tool, because I do want to make sure that I can add some of the colour on the top of this. So I'm just going in now again. So like I said before, I use the bottom of my sticks with my paintbrush if I want to lift some colour. So some of them have got quite some dents in, but then that leaves me with the top part to use for more mark making, and then I use the bottom section, but that's just how I use them. So you can go in over the top of your acrylic medium. When Dina Wakley designed these sticks, she designed them specifically because she wanted something that would go over her acrylic paint. So they will go over the top of other things. I don't overly use them in that way. I tend to use them more as a base, but they are designed so that you should be able to do that. But like I say, that's not how I often use them, although I do use them in this way quite a lot, where I put the collage down with the matte medium, which is an acrylic product, and then I can go over the top with some colour. I do find that you do get a little bit of beading up, to be honest, but you can generally spread it out and it's not too bad. But making sure everything is dry is sort of quite important to being able to put the scribble stick over the top of it. And so I'm just going in with a few colours just to lift the face a little bit. The one on the left sort of got the best sort of, what do I call it? It stands out the best, I feel. What I could have done, I could have waited for this all then to dry, and I could have gone back in with another coat of product. But I am generally quite impatient. I don't like waiting around too much. So and it's in my journal. I wasn't too worried. You know, it's not got to be the most brilliant of pieces to be in my art journal. It's for me to play, and like I am doing in this project, just playing with the scribble sticks, getting a feel again for how they work. And I'm going in now with just a little bit of Copic Acrea, just to highlight into the eyes and to add some little white highlights and things like that. And then I will go in with some sentiments from, I think it's the Tim Holtz label stickers with the thoughts. And I will be adding those just to finish off the project. So thank you ever so much for watching today. I hope this has given you an idea of, if you've got these in your stash, that of getting them out and getting them used. And if you've got something similar or the same thing, you can do, like I say, you can do the same sorts of things with lots of other products in a similar vein to these water soluble or water reactive, I don't like to say soluble, water reactive sticks. so thank you, and if you have enjoyed the video, do please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, I'd love it if you could do that too. And don't forget, you have that hype button which you can press, which it doesn't cost anything, and it really helps small creators. And at the end, you will see a list of my lovely super supporters. They are my YouTube members. A big extra thank you goes out to them. And until the next time, bye-bye.